Listen, your body is lying to you. It tells you can't sleep, you're too anxious, you're burnt out, you have zero energy, and you're just not strong enough to fight that craving. It makes you feel like you're completely out of control. Like these moments, the 3 a.m. panic, the 2 p.m. crash, the sudden wave of stress are things that just happen to you. Like you're a passenger in your own life, watching helplessly as your body makes decisions you don't agree with. But what if I told you that's completely backwards? What if the truth is that you have more control over these moments than you ever imagined? What if your body isn't broken, it's just waiting for you to learn its language? Imagine your body isn't a modern computer you can just reboot. Imagine your body is a vintage, hand-built European sports car, maybe a classic 1960s model parked in your driveway. It's a beautiful, powerful machine, capable of incredible speed and performance, but it's temperamental. It doesn't have a modern push-button ignition. Sometimes it stalls, sometimes it idles too high and sputters. When it does that, you can't just yell at it or put a band-aid on the engine. You need to know the exact, strange, almost secret spot to apply a manual crank or the precise choke lever to pull to get that powerful engine purring perfectly again. This isn't just a metaphor. It's the literal truth about your nervous system. Your body has hidden switches, emergency overrides, and manual controls that most people never learn about. They go through life thinking their anxiety, their exhaustion, their cravings are just things they have to endure. They don't realize they're sitting in the driver's seat of one of the most sophisticated biological machines ever created, with the full control panel at their fingertips. The common belief is that to fix deep-seated issues like anxiety, stress, or chronic tiredness, you need massive life changes, expensive supplements, or daily habits that take 6 months to work. That's what everyone says. That's what the wellness industry wants you to believe. Because if you knew the truth, if you knew you could fix most of these problems in under 60 seconds, they'd lose billions of dollars. But here's the contrarian take, the truth I've found. You can flip the switch on some of your body's worst feelings instantly. You can trigger a full system reset with almost zero effort right now using nothing but your own body and a few weird tricks. This isn't just theory. This isn't motivational speaking. This is hard neuroscience, the kind that's been proven in labs and used by military special forces, elite athletes, and people who literally depend on controlling their nervous system to survive. I've broken down the 7 most powerful instant body hacks that exist, the ones that target your central nervous system with surgical precision. They are the manual choke levers for your internal engine. They're the hidden buttons on your control panel that nobody told you about. In this video, I'm going to break down the 7 most effective ones. You're going to get the exact science behind why they work, the precise technique for how to use them, and the single best moment to deploy each one that will change your day. No fluff, no theory, just actionable techniques you can use the moment you finish watching this video. The last hack on this list is the single most powerful tool you have to instantly eliminate chronic stress, and I've deliberately saved it for the end because it's the ultimate manual crank that gets your engine running smoothly every single time. If you struggle with the constant, crushing feeling of anxiety or stress, you need to stick around, because the one thing that will fix it is the last thing you'll ever expect. It's so simple that when I first learned it, I actually laughed. Then I tried it, and I couldn't believe how fast it worked. But first, let's talk about the moment where the engine starts sputtering, the sudden, overwhelming feeling of panic that just grabs you out of nowhere. The moment when your heart starts racing, your thoughts spiral, and you feel like you're losing control of your own mind. If you're feeling a sudden spike of anxiety, the physical, weird thing you need to do is rub your hands fast. Just aggressively rub them together like you're trying to start a fire. Do it for about 10 to 15 seconds with serious, concentrated effort. I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds like something a kindergarten teacher would tell you to do when you're cold, but this simple action is one of the most powerful anxiety interrupts that exists. The reason most people fail to control their anxiety is because they try to fight it with their mind. They try to think their way out of it. They tell themselves to calm down, to breathe, to relax, and it doesn't work. In fact, it usually makes things worse. That's because anxiety isn't happening in your thinking brain. It's happening in your nervous system. It's a physical state that creates mental symptoms, not the other way around. Think about the last time you felt anxious, really anxious. Your heart was probably racing, your palms were sweating, your breathing was shallow, your chest felt tight, your thoughts were spinning. Now ask yourself, which came first? Did you think anxious thoughts and then your body responded? Or did your body start reacting and then your mind created a story to explain those sensations? The truth is, most anxiety starts in the body. Your nervous system detects some kind of signal. Maybe your blood sugar dropped. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you had too much caffeine. Maybe you're in a crowded space and your primitive brain interprets that as a threat, and it initiates a stress response. Your body changes state. And then your conscious mind, trying to make sense of why your body is freaking out, creates anxious thoughts to match. This is why trying to think your way out of anxiety is like trying to convince a fire alarm to stop beeping while the building is on fire. The alarm isn't malfunctioning, it's responding to a signal. If you want the alarm to stop, you need to address the signal, not argue with the alarm. For the longest time, I thought I was alone in this. I've got to be honest with you, and this is a bit of personal insight. I remember the first time I got a full-blown panic attack. It wasn't during a big speech or a flight, it was sitting on my couch watching a football game. Just a regular Sunday afternoon. The Broncos were playing and I was eating nachos, completely relaxed. And then out of absolutely nowhere, it felt like someone had taken a defibrillator and clamped it onto my chest. My heart rate exploded, my vision narrowed, and my mind just started spinning with these catastrophic thoughts that made no sense. I remember thinking, I'm having a heart attack, I'm dying, this is it. Which was absurd because I was 28 years old and in good health. But in that moment, with my heart hammering and my breath coming in gasps, it felt absolutely real. The thoughts weren't creating the panic was creating the thoughts. I tried to breathe, I tried to think logically, I tried to tell myself I was fine, that nothing was wrong, that I was safe, and it just made everything worse. The more I tried to control it with my mind, the more out of control I felt. It's like quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. I felt so disconnected, like I was watching my life from outside my own head, like I was a ghost haunting my own body. That feeling of being a helpless passenger while your body freaks out is the worst kind of vulnerability. It's terrifying in a way that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. You feel like you've lost control of the most fundamental thing, your own physical self. That's what led me to this hack. After that first panic attack, I had several more over the next few weeks. They seemed to come out of nowhere. I'd be fine one moment, and then boom, my nervous system would just hijack my body. I started avoiding places and situations where I'd had panic attacks before, which is textbook anxiety disorder behavior. I was developing agoraphobia without even realizing it. I started researching the neuroscience of panic, reading everything I could find, and I realized something crucial. The anxiety loop is your brain mistaking an empty road for a high-speed chase. It's a closed, self-sustaining system of fear feeding thought, and thought feeding fear. The amygdala, your fear center, this almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep in your brain, gets activated by some kind of trigger. That activation triggers physical symptoms: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, muscle tension, sweating. Your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, detects those physical symptoms and interprets them as danger. Why would my heart be racing unless something is wrong, it thinks. So it starts scanning for threats. And because it's looking for threats, it finds them everywhere. Every ambiguous situation becomes potentially dangerous. Every physical sensation becomes a possible sign of catastrophe. This interpretation feeds back to the amygdala, confirming its initial alarm. See, the thinking brain agrees something is wrong, so the amygdala amps up the stress response even more. Heart beats faster, breathing gets shallower, thoughts spiral harder, which the prefrontal cortex interprets as more danger, and the loop continues, feeding on itself, getting stronger with each cycle. You can't stop it with logic because the logic center of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, is currently being bypassed by the panic system. Your amygdala has taken over. It's like trying to reason with a fire alarm that's going off. The alarm doesn't care about your logical arguments, it's just screaming. So here's what you do instead. When you aggressively rub your hands together, you are immediately bombarding your brain with a massive, sudden surge of completely new information. You're creating an intense physical sensation of friction, heat, and pressure. All that new input is flooding in through a sensory nerve in your hands, specifically through mechanoreceptors and thermoreceptors that are densely packed in your palms, which connects directly to your somatosensory cortex, the part of your brain that processes touch. Your nervous system has to decide, right now, in this very moment, whether the imaginary danger your anxiety is generating is more important than the sudden, intense reality of the friction and heat on your palms. And here's the key. Your brain can only process a limited amount of sensory information at once. It has to prioritize. It has to decide what deserves attention. And intense, novel physical sensations always take priority over vague imaginary threats. This is called the salience network in neuroscience. Your brain is constantly filtering through millions of pieces of sensory input every second, deciding what's important enough to pay attention to. And it has a hierarchy. Physical sensations that are intense and novel rank very high. Abstract worries about possible future threats rank much lower. When you create that intense friction and heat, you're essentially forcing your brain to reprioritize. You're saying, forget the imaginary threat, deal with this real physical sensation right now. And your brain has no choice but to comply. It's an immediate, forced pattern interrupt. Because the sensation is so strong and so sudden, it essentially forces your brain to hang up on the anxious loop it was caught in. It's like someone yanking the needle off a record. The song stops playing. The loop breaks. Think of it this way. It's the neurological equivalent of a power surge forcing a computer to reboot. The fire alarm is going off in the sensory department, and your brain has no choice but to divert all its attention to the alarm, momentarily forgetting about the endless anxiety chatter. Your somatosensory cortex lights up with activity, which dampens the activity in your amygdala. The panic signal gets drowned out by the touch signal. There's also a secondary mechanism at play here. When you're rubbing your hands together, you're engaging in what psychologists call active coping. You're doing something physical, something that requires effort and intention. This is the opposite of the helpless, passive state that anxiety creates. Active coping sends a signal to your nervous system, we're not helpless, we're taking action, we're doing something. This shift from passive victim to active agent is psychologically powerful. Even if the action itself seems silly or insignificant, the mere fact that you're doing something intentional changes your relationship to the anxiety. You're no longer just enduring it, you're responding to it. You should aim for a feeling of actual heat, a strong, focused sensation of friction. This is not a gentle massage, this is not a casual hand rub like you might do on a cold day. It needs to be an aggressive, intentional 10 to 15-second override. Rub them together like you're genuinely trying to create fire with your bare hands. Create heat, create noise, create a sensation so intense that it demands your full attention. By focusing your attention entirely on the physical input, the texture of your skin sliding against itself, the warmth building between your palms, the sound of your hands rubbing together, you are intentionally directing your consciousness away from the imaginary future that anxiety is trying to pull you into. You're bringing yourself back to the present moment, to physical reality, to your actual body in actual space. The best time to use this is the moment you feel the spikes start. Don't wait for it to build. Don't try to think your way out of it first. Don't try to breathe through it before using this technique. The second you feel that first flutter of panic, that first racing thought, that first spike in heart rate, immediately start rubbing your hands together. Use it as an instant containment measure. Catch the fire when it's a spark, not after it's burned down the house. Over time, this technique does something even more powerful. It trains your brain that you are in charge of the signal, not the fear. It teaches your nervous system that panic is not unstoppable, that you have tools, that you have agency. And that psychological shift from helpless victim to active agent is transformative. Each time you successfully interrupt the anxiety loop, you're building what psychologists call self-efficacy. the belief that you can influence your own outcomes. After using this technique consistently for a few weeks, something interesting happens. The anxiety spikes become less frequent because your nervous system learns that they're not effective. Why would your amygdala bother sending panic signals if those signals are going to be immediately interrupted? It's like a car alarm that gets shut off every time it sounds. Eventually, it becomes less sensitive. This hack is critical because it introduces the core idea of this entire video. You don't fight a psychological storm with more psychology. You fight it with a physical, sensory distraction. It proves that a physical, immediate action is often the most powerful way to override a deep, intense mental state. Most people think anxiety is a mental problem that requires a mental solution. But the truth is anxiety is a nervous system problem that requires a nervous system solution. And your nervous system speaks the language of sensation, not logic. It responds to input, not arguments. It responds to signals, not reasoning. This is a fundamental paradigm shift that changes everything about how you approach emotional regulation. Instead of trying to control your thoughts, control your sensory input. Instead of trying to calm your mind, calm your body. Instead of fighting the anxiety directly, redirect your nervous system's attention somewhere else. But what happens when the panic isn't a quick spike, but a deep, heavy, pervasive weight that lasts for hours? That crushing feeling of chronic stress that sits on your chest like a boulder. That needs a hack that is just as deep, targeting the single most powerful nerve in your entire body. If rubbing your hands is the emergency brake for panic, what is the nuclear button for deep, chronic, unrelenting stress? And why is it hiding in something as simple as temperature? When you are feeling truly overwhelmed, crushed by chronic stress, or just need to hit a deep reset button, the key is to hold something cold in your hand. Not lukewarm, not cool, cold. Intensely, uncomfortably cold. The problem with chronic stress is that it's like the throttle on your vintage car is perpetually stuck. Your engine, your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is constantly running at 7,000 RPMs. This perpetual high alert state is exhausting, and it poisons everything in your body. It floods your bloodstream with cortisol, it raises your blood pressure, it suppresses your immune system, it makes you irritable, foggy, and exhausted all at the same time. Your relaxation system, the parasympathetic nervous system, is completely offline, like a dead battery. You need a way to force that dead battery back to life. You need to tell your body, in no uncertain terms, that the emergency is over and it's time to stand down. The conventional relaxation advice is too slow. It's like gently whispering to a roaring V8 engine to please be quiet. You need a powerful, sudden, non-verbal command that your nervous system can't ignore. The secret here is the vagus nerve, the longest and most complex nerve in your body. It runs from your brainstem all the way down to your abdomen, touching nearly every major organ along the way. It is literally the physical line for your relaxation system, the main highway of your parasympathetic nervous system. When you activate it, your body is physically forced to calm down, slow your heart rate, drop your breathing pace, and lower your blood pressure. The vagus nerve is like the master dimmer switch for your entire stress response. When it's active, stress is impossible. When it's inactive, relaxation is impossible. So the key to instant stress relief is learning how to activate it on demand. When you grip something intensely cold, an ice cube, a frozen can, an ice pack from your freezer, even a bag of frozen peas, you are sending an extremely urgent, sudden signal to sensory branches connected to the vagus nerve. Your hands are packed with temperature receptors, and when they detect intense cold, they send a powerful signal up through your peripheral nervous system, which connects directly to the vagus nerve. This signal acts as an immediate override, initiating what's called the diving reflex. The diving reflex is an ancient, innate survival mechanism that exists in all mammals. It's what happens when a mammal is exposed to sudden, sharp, cold water on the face or hands. The body's immediate, involuntary response is to conserve oxygen by slowing the heart rate and initiating a profound state of calm. You are hijacking that survival program. You're tricking your body into thinking you've just plunged into cold water, and it responds by immediately activating your parasympathetic nervous system. Hold the cold object until you feel that first, subtle, physical shift, that momentary gasp, or that sudden sense of quiet in your chest, like someone turned down the volume on the world. That is the vagus nerve activating, telling your engine to drop from 7,000 RPMs to a smooth, quiet idle. Your heart rate will drop, your breathing will deepen, the tightness in your chest will release. The discomfort of the intense cold also provides an incredible psychological benefit. You cannot ruminate on your worries while you are consciously willing yourself to hold that sharp cold. The immediate, present sensation cuts through all mental clutter. It's a physical reset for a mental problem. Your brain is forced to focus on the cold, which means it can't focus on your stress. It's the same principle as the hand rubbing technique, but even more powerful because you're activating a specific nerve pathway designed for relaxation. Here's something wild that proves just how powerful this mechanism is. I once spoke to an emergency room doctor who told me about a patient who came in with a heart rate so dangerously high, they were preparing to use electrical cardioversion, literally shocking the heart back into rhythm with paddles like you see in the movies. The patient's heart was beating so fast it was approaching cardiac arrest. They were prepping the equipment, getting ready to sedate the patient and deliver the shock. But as they were prepping, a nurse, an older nurse who'd been working in the ER for 30 years, grabbed an ice pack from the trauma bay freezer and placed it directly on the patient's face. Within 30 seconds, the heart rate dropped from 180 beats per minute to 90. Within a minute, it was back to normal. They canceled the procedure entirely. The doctor looked at me and said something I'll never forget. We just needed to tell the body to remember it knows how to be calm. That's the power of the vagus nerve. It's a biological override switch that can prevent a medical emergency, and it's so powerful it can stop your heart from exploding out of your chest, and you can activate it by holding an ice cube. This hack is the central pillar of controlling your inner state. Everything else, sleep, energy, focus, fall into place once you know how to instantly shut down the stress response. It is the ultimate proof that you have the power to hack your own system, and you are not a helpless victim of your own stress. Stress isn't something that happens to you. It's something your body creates, which means it's something your body can stop creating. And now you know how to tell it to stop. But what if you're not panicked or stressed? What if you're just stuck? Plagued by that heavy, crushing laziness that makes your brain feel like it's packed in wet cement, where even the simplest task feels impossible? If the vagus nerve is the master switch for stress, what's the simple trick to snap yourself out of being hopelessly lazy and mentally checked out? If you're feeling lazy, mentally checked out, or suffering from a severe case of brain fog where your thoughts move like molasses and every task feels monumental, the simple, weird thing you need to do is to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. I know that sounds insane. I know it sounds like something from a self-help book written by someone who's never had a real job. But stay with me, because the neuroscience behind this is incredible and the results are immediate. The problem with mental stuckness is that your brain is running on overly efficient, low-power autopilot. Your brain, being the efficient machine it is, has automated thousands of tasks to save energy. Brushing your teeth, walking from room to room, stirring your coffee, scrolling through your phone. All zero-effort tasks. Your brain has created neural pathways for these activities that are so well-worn, so deeply grooved, that they require almost no conscious thought. And when your brain is stuck in these low-power patterns, when it's been running on autopilot for hours or days, it's incredibly hard to switch gears to a task that requires high-level, focused effort. Laziness is not a character flaw. It's not moral weakness. It's the inertia of the autopilot setting. Your brain is in energy conservation mode, and it doesn't want to shift to high power mode because that takes effort. The typical way people try to fix this is by telling themselves, just try harder, just do the thing, which is completely useless. Willpower doesn't work when your brain is in low power mode. It's like trying to accelerate a car that's in neutral. The engine might be running, but you're not going anywhere. You need a physical action that forces the brain out of its ruck, that manually shifts it into a higher gear. When you switch hands, when you try to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, you instantly break that automation. What was previously an unconscious, automatic routine becomes a conscious, effortful task. You immediately force your brain to engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for problem-solving, attention, executive function, and conscious thought. What was a zero-effort task is now a high-effort task. You have to focus on gripping the toothbrush correctly. You have to coordinate the movement. You have to consciously guide your hand to actually hit your teeth instead of your cheek. Every single second requires conscious, directed attention. This sudden, mild demand for focused attention wakes up dormant parts of your brain. It's like hitting the mental restart button with a jolt of productive confusion. The mild frustration and intense focus required to perform the task breaks the inertia of laziness. You're forced to concentrate on something new and challenging, and that cognitive effort creates a cognitive momentum that you can immediately apply to the difficult task you were trying to avoid. Your prefrontal cortex lights up, your attention sharpens, your brain shifts from autopilot to manual control. And once you've made that shift, it's much easier to maintain it and apply it to other tasks. You've told your brain, hey, we're not on vacation anymore. It's time to wake up, focus, and solve problems. That momentary burst of focused energy, that cognitive activation, carries over to your work. It primes your brain for high-level thinking. This is based on the principle of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new neural connections. When you do something novel, something that breaks your usual patterns, your brain has to create new pathways. And the act of creating those new pathways wakes up your entire system. It's like turning on the lights in a room that's been dark for hours. Suddenly, everything is more visible, more clear, more possible. Laziness is not a moral failure. It's a failure of cognitive strategy. This hack provides a simple, immediate strategy to override that failure by leveraging your brain's love of novelty and problem-solving. It proves that you can literally trick your brain into higher performance by making the simplest part of your routine temporarily difficult. The implications are huge. If you can snap yourself out of laziness by brushing your teeth with the wrong hand, what other simple environmental changes can you make to maintain high-level cognitive function? This opens the door to an entire world of behavioral hacks that use physical actions to create mental states. But let's be real, even if you're not lazy, you might be genuinely exhausted. Not the stress-fueled exhaustion, but the physical, head-thick, eyes-heavy, 2 p.m. slump, exhaustion where your body feels like it's made of lead. If a difficult toothbrush routine can fix your focus, what simple, explosive trick can instantly refill your energy tank without caffeine or stimulants? If you're tired in the morning, or you hit that infamous 2 p.m. energy wall where your eyelids feel like they're made of concrete and your brain feels like it's swimming in syrup, the solution is not a third cup of coffee. The solution is to jump up and down 50 times. Just 50 simple, easy jumps. That's it. When you're tired, your body is often in a state of low-level stagnation. Blood flow is slow. Oxygen intake is shallow. Your body temperature is low. Your lymphatic system, the system responsible for clearing waste from your tissues, is sluggish. Everything is running in low power mode. The problem is simple physical inertia, the tendency of a body at rest to stay at rest. Your body has settled into a low energy state, and it takes a significant amount of energy to break out of that state. It's like trying to get a boulder rolling down a hill. The hardest part is getting it started. Conventional advice like stretching or taking a gentle walk is too gentle. It doesn't provide the strong signal necessary to completely override that deep-seated tired feeling. You need an explosive, sudden, but short-lived burst of activity that tells your entire system, wake up, now, emergency, all hands on deck. Jumping 50 times is the perfect activity to deliver this sudden wake-up call, and it works on multiple, powerful systems at once. It's not arbitrary. 50 is the magic number because it's just enough to trigger massive physiological changes without crossing into actual physical exhaustion. It's a sprint, not a marathon. It's a quick, high-impact interruption that instantly establishes a state of alertness and high energy that will carry you through the next few hours. You don't need to jump high. You don't need to do anything fancy. Just bounce up and down. Land softly on the balls of your feet. Keep a steady rhythm. Count to 50. By the time you hit 30, you'll already feel the shift. By 50, you'll feel completely different. This hack is vital because it shows you that true energy is not found in a can or a pill. It's an internal switch. You can generate immense, clean energy on demand simply by moving your body in a specific, intentional way. It's about recognizing that a physical problem has an immediate physical solution that doesn't rely on external substances. Caffeine works by blocking the receptors in your brain that signal fatigue, but it doesn't actually give you energy. It just masks the feeling of tiredness, and when it wears off, you crash. Jumping, on the other hand, actually generates real energy by increasing blood flow, oxygen delivery, and hormonal activation. It's not a mask, it's genuine physiological activation. Now that we've established control over our energy, let's talk about the one thing that can sabotage all that focus in an instant: the relentless call of the craving. If you can instantly wake up your body, can you instantly silence the brain's loudest, most demanding desires? What if I told you that the solution to unstoppable cravings is sitting in your desk drawer right now? When a craving hits, that intense, singular, tunnel vision focus on a specific, often unhealthy thing, you have a brief window of opportunity to override it. The simple, immediate hack is to chew gum for 2 minutes. Any flavor, any brand, just 2 minutes. The problem with cravings is that they are not about actual hunger. They are an intense, short-lived psychological urge driven by memory, habit, emotion, and the dopamine system in your brain. A craving is a demand for instant gratification, and it operates entirely on the emotional, impulsive side of your brain, the limbic system. It's a brief neurological storm that hijacks your attention and makes one specific desire feel like the most important thing in the world. The conventional advice to use willpower is a setup for failure. Willpower is a limited resource that gets depleted throughout the day. By the time a craving hits, especially if it's late afternoon or evening, your willpower tank is already empty. You need a way to distract, delay, and partially satisfy that primal urge without actually giving it what it wants. You need a subtle psychological trick that hijacks the same systems the craving is using. Chewing gum for just 2 minutes works because it simultaneously engages 3 powerful systems to shut down the craving signal, and it does so in a way that feels like you're satisfying the craving without actually doing so. First, it engages the oromotor system. The physical act of chewing satisfies the brain's need for oral stimulation, which is often the main component of a craving, especially those driven by boredom or habit. You are physically doing something with your mouth, which partially fulfills the impulsive need for action. Your jaw is moving, your mouth is working. Your brain registers this as eating behavior even though you're not actually consuming food. Second, it engages the gustatory system, taste. The strong initial burst of flavor, whether it's mint, fruit, or cinnamon, is a pattern interrupt for the desire signal. More importantly, because your brain registers that your mouth is engaged in the process of eating, chewing, tasting, salivating, it sends a false signal to your body. Food has been secured and is being consumed. This neurological lie calms the system. Your brain thinks, okay, we're eating something. The need has been addressed. We can stand down. Third, it leverages the fact that cravings are time-bound. A craving is rarely a sustained hour-long feeling. It's an intense spike that usually lasts less than 15 minutes, often less than 5 minutes. Cravings follow a wave pattern. They build, peak, and then naturally dissipate. If you can successfully delay the actual act of consumption for just a few minutes, the intensity of the craving will naturally drop. You are buying yourself time, and the gum is the perfect low-cost distraction that makes that time pass without feeling like torture. The key to the application is to make the decision immediately. The moment the thought enters your head, I really want that cookie, or I need to order pizza right now, you immediately pop in the gum. You don't negotiate with yourself, you don't try to talk yourself out of it, you replace the impulse to eat with the impulse to chew. It's an impulse substitution, not an impulse suppression. And here's the genius part. Because you're not trying to suppress the craving, you're not creating that feeling of deprivation that makes cravings worse. You're redirecting it. You're giving your brain something to do that feels similar enough to satisfy the impulse without actually giving into it. This hack is important because it teaches you that control over your habits is not about relying on superhuman willpower or beating yourself up every time you fail. It's about tiny, immediate actions that hijack your body's impulse mechanisms. It's the ultimate example of a small effort yielding a massive result. The implications extend far beyond food cravings. This same principle, impulse substitution rather than impulse suppression, can be applied to all kinds of unwanted behaviors. The urge to check your phone constantly, the urge to procrastinate, the urge to engage in any compulsive behavior. Instead of trying to not do the thing, you give yourself an alternative behavior that satisfies the same psychological need. But all the focus, energy, and calm in the world is pointless if you can't get the one thing your body needs most: deep, restorative sleep. If gum can kill a craving, what simple physical action can kill the worst mental chatter at 3 a.m. when your mind won't stop racing? If you're lying in bed, exhausted, but your mind is racing and you simply can't fall asleep, the bizarre, immediate action you need to take is to blink rapidly for 1 minute, as fast as you can, for a full 60 seconds. The problem with sleeplessness is often a failure of your body to transition from a high-focus, high-alert state to a low-focus, rest state. When your mind is racing, your eyes are often straining in the dark, trying to find something to focus on. They default to a search mode, which keeps your brain in a state of high alert. Vigilance is the opposite of sleep. It's the neurological equivalent of leaving a powerful floodlight on inside a dark room and then wondering why you can't relax. The goal here is not to just close your eyes, which still leaves your brain in search mode. The goal is to fatigue the eye muscles and force a profound state of immediate physical relaxation around the visual system, which then signals to the rest of your brain that it's time to shut down. When you blink rapidly for 1 minute, you are achieving two critical things that signal to your brain that it is time to shut down and enter sleep mode. First, you are inducing eye muscle fatigue. The muscles that control your eyelids, the levator palpebrae superioris muscles, and your eye movement, the 6 extraocular muscles, are being pushed to their limit by the rapid, constant movement. After 60 seconds of rapid blinking, those muscles are exhausted. When you finally stop and close your eyes, that sudden, complete rest feels profound. This physical fatigue is a strong, undeniable signal to your brain that the visual system has been overworked and is now officially resting. It's like the difference between choosing to sit down versus collapsing into a chair after running a marathon. The latter sends a much stronger signal that rest is needed. Second, you are interrupting the high alert search mode. While you are rapidly blinking, your visual input is a confusing, flickering mess. Your brain is unable to establish focus or coherence. This momentarily prevents the brain from being able to sustain a coherent visual search, forcing it to stop actively processing complex visual information. When you stop the rapid blinking and close your eyes, the system has successfully been forced into a state of quiet visual darkness. The search mode has been disrupted and can't easily restart. The technique is simple. Make the blinks as quick and strong as you can. Full blinks, upper lid to lower lid. Do it for a full 60 seconds. It will feel weird. Your eyes might water. That's fine. When you hit the 60-second mark, stop immediately and close your eyes, letting the muscles relax completely. That deep, profound sense of muscular relief that you feel in your eyes is the key. It allows your brain to transition into the deep, restful brainwave states characteristic of sleep. from beta waves, alert, to alpha waves, relaxed, to theta waves, drowsy, to delta waves, deep sleep. This hack is important because it shows you that even the most frustrating mental problems, like a racing mind at night, often have a simple, direct, physical solution. You don't need to control your thoughts directly, which is almost impossible when you're exhausted and anxious. You just need to control the physical input channels that feed those thoughts. Shut off the visual channel, and the noise level in your brain drops instantly. Sleep is not something that happens to you. It's something your body does when it receives the right signals. And now you know how to send those signals on demand. We're down to the final hack, and it's the simplest action on this entire list, yet it provides the most powerful, clean energy burst. If you can blink yourself to sleep, what's the one weird action that instantly snaps you into high alert without a drop of caffeine? And why does it involve the same mechanism that keeps deep-sea divers alive at 200 feet below the surface? If you're just generally feeling low on energy, flat, or need a sudden burst of pure, clean alertness, the kind of focus that feels sharp and crystalline rather than jittery and anxious, the immediate zero-calorie action you need to take is to splash cold water on your face. Not lukewarm, not cool, cold. As cold as your tap will go, or even better, ice water. The problem here is a lack of alertness, a low level of general systemic arousal. Your brain is running in a quiet, low-power maintenance mode, and you need to shock it back into a full alert state. You need a signal that is so sudden, so jarring, so undeniable, that it forces a full neurological and hormonal override. You need to activate systems that are normally reserved for survival situations. The conventional wisdom of gently waking up, stretching, walking around, maybe having another cup of coffee is too slow. It might work eventually, but you need results now. You need a powerful signal that activates a set of powerful internal systems that are designed to respond only to environmental shock. Splashing cold water on your face works because it triggers the mammalian diving reflex with maximum intensity. This is the same reflex we discussed earlier with the ice cube, but facial cold exposure activates it even more powerfully because your face has the highest concentration of the specific receptors that trigger this response. The face, particularly the area around your eyes and nose, is packed with sensitive sensory receptors connected to the trigeminal nerve, the fifth cranial nerve and one of the most important nerves in your head. When cold water hits this area, the signal is urgent and immediate. Your brain instantly perceives this as a potential environmental threat, the threat of being submerged in cold water. As a result, the body's instantaneous response is to conserve oxygen and redirect resources to vital organs. It does this through several mechanisms: slowing your heart rate, bradycardia. This seems counterintuitive. You'd think your heart rate would increase in response to a threat. But the diving reflex does the opposite. It slows your heart to conserve oxygen. And this profound involuntary signal of calm leads to heightened focus. Your body enters a state of calm alertness, relaxed but intensely aware. Peripheral vasoconstriction. Blood vessels in your extremities, your hands, feet, arms, and legs, constrict, forcing blood towards your core and, critically, towards your brain. This surge of central blood flow delivers a blast of oxygen and glucose to your central nervous system, which instantly cuts through the brain fog and dullness. It's like someone opening all the windows in a stuffy room. Increased norepinephrine release. The cold triggers your adrenal glands to release norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with focus, attention, and arousal. But unlike caffeine, which blocks fatigue signals without actually providing energy, norepinephrine genuinely increases alertness by enhancing signal transmission in your brain. This is a complete, powerful systemic override. It is the purest form of biological adrenaline and focus you can achieve without a chemical, and it's completely free, always available, and has zero side effects or crash. The unexpected story here is how this is used in extreme environments, and it completely changed my understanding of how powerful this reflex is. People who work in deep-sea industries or extreme cold water survival training often report that the application of cold to the face is the fastest way to stabilize heart rate and focus the mind when facing a survival situation. I read an account from a commercial diver who got disoriented at 200 feet below the surface. He was working on an offshore oil rig, doing a routine inspection when his breathing regulator malfunctioned. He started getting too much CO2 and not enough oxygen. His vision was narrowing, that tunnel vision you get right before you pass out. His breathing was panicked, shallow, rapid. He was seconds away from making a fatal decision, either shooting to the surface, which would have given him decompression sickness and killed him, or ripping off his mask in a panic, which would have drowned him immediately. But his training kicked in. He splashed the interior of his dive mask with the coldest water he could access. And at 200 feet below the surface, that water is cold. Within moments, his heart rate stabilized, his vision cleared, the panic subsided. He was able to calmly switch to his backup regulator and safely ascend according to his decompression schedule. He told the interviewer, "The cold water didn't just calm me down, it gave me back my brain. I went from pure panic to pure focus in about 5 seconds." They are literally tapping into this ancient reflex to save their lives in the most extreme environments on Earth. You can repurpose that same survival mechanism to just get through a Tuesday afternoon when you have 3 more hours of work and your brain feels like mush. This hack is the capstone of this entire list because it proves that you are your own power source. It proves that you have the ability to instantly switch your physical state from exhaustion to high alert using only the environmental resources immediately available to you. It's about taking the biological inheritance of your body's survival mechanisms, reflexes that evolved over millions of years to keep you alive in extreme conditions, and repurposing them for the needs of modern life. You don't need supplements. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to wait for the caffeine to kick in. You just need water and the knowledge of how to use it. We've covered all the core functions. You now know how to stop panic in its tracks, kill chronic stress, focus a lazy brain, generate instant energy, kill a craving, and initiate sleep on command. We started with the metaphor of your body as a high-powered, temperamental vintage car. Throughout this video, you found the manual crank, jumping 50 times, the choke lever for a smooth idle, the vagus nerve activation through cold, the special fuel additive for focus, brushing with the wrong hand, and all the other hidden controls that nobody told you existed. But here's what matters most. You no longer have to wait for things to get better. You no longer have to feel like a victim of your own nervous system. You can make things better right now with one of these simple, weird actions. These aren't coping strategies. These aren't band-aids. These are actual biological override mechanisms that directly target your central nervous system. The difference between someone who feels powerless and someone who feels completely in control is not genetics or luck or discipline. It's simply a matter of knowing which button to press. And now you know. You have the instruction manual. You have the control panel. The vintage sports car is still temperamental, but now you know exactly which levers to pull and which cranks to turn. Before we wrap up, I need to tell you something crucial about why these hacks work that goes beyond just the neuroscience. Because understanding the mechanism is one thing, but understanding the philosophy behind it changes everything. For most of your life, you've been told a lie. You've been told that your emotions control you, that anxiety is something that happens to you, that stress is an inevitable response to your circumstances, that your energy levels are determined by how much sleep you got or what you ate, that cravings are irresistible forces you have to battle with willpower. But here's the truth that these hacks prove. Your body is not your master, it's your instrument. And like any instrument, it needs to be played correctly. A violin in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to play it produces terrible noise. But in the hands of a master, it produces beauty. Your nervous system is the same way. The reason most people feel out of control is not because they are out of control. It's because they were never taught the controls in the first place. It's like being handed the keys to a Ferrari and being told to figure it out yourself. You might eventually learn how to drive it, but you'll crash a lot along the way. And most people spend their entire lives crashing, experiencing anxiety attacks, stress spirals, exhaustion, brain fog, and thinking that's just how life is. These 7 hacks are not band-aids, they're not coping mechanisms, they're the actual controls. They're the steering wheel, the brake pedal, the gear shift. Once you know they exist, once you know how to use them, the entire experience of being in your body changes. Look at what all 7 of these hacks have in common. Every single one of them bypasses your thinking brain and goes straight to your nervous system. They don't ask your anxiety to calm down nicely. They don't try to convince your stress that everything is fine. They don't negotiate with your exhaustion or your cravings. They force a physiological change that your mental state has to follow. This is the key insight. Your mind follows your body, not the other way around. This is completely backwards from what we're taught. We're taught that if we can just think the right thoughts, feel the right feelings, and have the right mindset, then our body will follow. But that's not how the nervous system works. Your body sends signals up to your brain constantly, signals about temperature, pain, pressure, movement, heart rate, breathing, and your brain interprets those signals and creates your emotional experience based on them. When your heart is racing and your breathing is shallow, your brain interprets that as anxiety or excitement. When your muscles are tense and your jaw is clenched, your brain interprets that as stress. When your blood sugar is low and your energy is depleted, your brain interprets that as depression or hopelessness. The revolutionary insight is that you can reverse this process. You can send different signals to your brain and force it to create a different emotional experience. You can manually change your heart rate, your breathing, your muscle tension, your sensory input. And when you do, your emotional state changes automatically, instantly, whether you want to or not. That's why rubbing your hands works for anxiety. You're flooding your brain with intense sensory input that forces it to pay attention to something else, something other than the imaginary threat. That's why cold exposure works for stress. You're activating the vagus nerve, which is physically cannot be active at the same time as your stress response. That's why jumping works for energy. You're forcing your cardiovascular system into a high output state, and your brain interprets that as alertness and vigor. You're not fighting your emotions, you're changing the physiological conditions that create those emotions in the first place. Once you understand this principle, you stop being a victim of your own nervous system. You stop waiting for anxiety to pass. You stop hoping that stress will go away on its own. You stop relying on willpower to overcome exhaustion or cravings. You stop lying in bed at 3 a.m. wishing your brain would shut up. You become an active agent in your own experience. You have tools, you have leverage, you have control. And the beautiful thing is that the more you use these tools, the better you get at using them. Your nervous system learns. It starts to recognize the patterns. It starts to respond faster. The hand rubbing that took 15 seconds to work the first time starts working in 5 seconds. The cold exposure that felt unbearable starts feeling like relief. The jumping that felt exhausting starts feeling energizing. You're not just using these hacks. You're training your nervous system to be more responsive, more flexible, more under your conscious control. You're building what neuroscientists call vagal tone, the strength and flexibility of your parasympathetic nervous system. You're increasing what psychologists call distress tolerance, your ability to experience discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. Over time, you become someone who doesn't panic easily, someone who recovers from stress quickly, someone who can generate energy on demand, someone who sleeps well, someone who isn't controlled by their cravings. Not because you have superhuman willpower or because you've eliminated all sources of stress from your life, but because you know how to regulate your own nervous system. Here's what nobody tells you about these kinds of interventions. They compound. Each one makes the others more effective. Each one builds on the foundation of the others. When you use the cold exposure hack to reduce your baseline stress, you'll find that you have fewer anxiety spikes that require the hand rubbing hack. When you use the jumping hack to maintain higher energy throughout the day, you'll find that you don't hit the 2 p.m. crash that makes you susceptible to cravings. When you use the rapid blinking hack to improve your sleep, you'll find that you wake up with better focus and don't need the non-dominant hand hack as often. They're not isolated techniques, they're parts of a system. And when you use them together, when you integrate them into your daily routine, they create a completely different baseline state. You become someone who operates at a higher level of energy, focus, and emotional regulation. Think about it this way. If you implement just 3 of these hacks consistently, say cold water on your face every morning, jumping at the 2 p.m. slump, and rapid blinking before bed, you've just added probably 10 to 15% more productive, focused, and energized time to every single day. Over a year, that's weeks of additional high-quality waking hours. Over a decade, that's months. And that's just the time calculation. That's not counting the anxiety attacks you avoided, the stress spirals you interrupted, the bad decisions you didn't make because you weren't exhausted, the relationships you didn't damage because you weren't irritable and overwhelmed. The compound effect of having control over your nervous system is genuinely life-changing. Now, I need to address the mistakes people make when they first learn these hacks, because I've seen them over and over, and they prevent people from getting the full benefit. Mistake number 1, not using them immediately. People learn about these hacks and think, oh, that's interesting, I'll try that next time. And then next time comes and they forget, or they hesitate, or they think, let me try to handle this on my own first. Don't do this. The power of these hacks is in their immediacy. Use them the moment you need them. The moment you feel the anxiety spike, rub your hands. The moment you notice the 2 p.m. crash, jump. The moment the craving hits, grab the gum. Speed is everything. Mistake number 2, not doing them intensely enough. These are not gentle interventions. They're not subtle suggestions to your nervous system. They're override commands. If you're rubbing your hands gently, it won't work. If you're holding a slightly cool object instead of an intensely cold one, it won't work. If you're doing 20 half-hearted jumps instead of 50 real ones, it won't work. Intensity matters. Your nervous system responds to strong signals, not weak ones. Mistake number 3, giving up after one try. Some of these hacks feel weird the first time you do them. The rapid blinking especially feels bizarre. The non-dominant hand brushing feels frustrating. The cold exposure feels uncomfortable. People try it once, it feels strange, and they abandon it. Don't do this. The first time you do anything new, it's awkward. The second time, it's slightly less awkward. By the 5th time, it's normal. By the 10th time, it's automatic. Give each hack at least a week of consistent use before you decide whether it works for you. Mistake number 4, not experimenting with variations. These are frameworks, not rigid formulas. Maybe you find that 30 jumps works better for you than 50. Maybe you find that splashing cold water on your wrists works as well as your face. Maybe you find that brushing your teeth with the wrong hand works better if you do it while standing on one foot. Experiment. Find the variations that work best for your body, your schedule, your preferences. The principles are universal, but the details are personal. Mistake number 5, not tracking the results. Your brain has a negativity bias. It remembers the times things didn't work better than the times they did. So if you don't actively track your results, you'll underestimate how effective these hacks are. Keep a simple log, nothing fancy, just a note on your phone that says, 3 p.m., felt exhausted, did 50 jumps, felt alert within 2 minutes. After a week, look back at that log. You'll be amazed at how consistent the results are. So, here's how you integrate all 7 of these hacks into a daily system that transforms your baseline state. Morning routine. Start your day with cold water on your face. Before you check your phone, before you have coffee, go to the bathroom and splash cold water on your face. This immediately activates your system and sets a tone of alertness and control. It tells your nervous system, we're in charge today. Mid-morning. If you notice brain fog or difficulty focusing on a difficult task, brush your teeth or wash your hands with your non-dominant hand. This breaks the mental autopilot and primes your prefrontal cortex for focused work. Lunch or early afternoon. This is when most people experience the post-lunch dip in energy. Before it hits or the moment you notice it starting, do 50 jumps. Get that cardiovascular system activated. Flush out the lymphatic system. Trigger that alertness response. Mid-afternoon. This is peak craving time for most people. Between 3 and 5 p.m., when stress is building and willpower is depleted, Keep gum easily accessible. The moment a craving hits, for sugar, for caffeine, for checking social media, for anything, immediately use the gum hack. Late afternoon or early evening. If you've had a stressful day, if you're carrying tension from work into your personal time, use the cold exposure hack. Hold an ice cube or a frozen can for 30 to 60 seconds. Activate that vagus nerve. Physically shut down the stress response so you can be present for your evening. Stressful moments. Whenever you feel anxiety spiking, whether it's before a meeting, during a difficult conversation, or just a random panic moment, immediately rub your hands together. Make this your first-line response to anxiety. Not breathing exercises, not positive thinking, not logic. Physical intervention first. Bedtime. Use the rapid blinking hack. Every night before you close your eyes to sleep, do 60 seconds of rapid blinking. Make this part of your sleep ritual. It signals to your nervous system that the day is over and it's time to power down. This is the full system. 7 hacks integrated into a daily routine that transforms your baseline state from morning to night. The reason most productivity hacks and wellness advice fails is because it requires too much effort for too little immediate reward. You're told to meditate for 20 minutes a day and the benefits will appear in 6 months. You're told to exercise for an hour and you'll feel better eventually. You're told to fix your sleep hygiene with 12 different rules and maybe you'll sleep better someday. These hacks are the opposite. They take seconds to minutes to perform and the results are immediate. You feel the difference within moments. That immediate feedback loop is what makes them sustainable. You're not relying on discipline or delayed gratification. You're experiencing instant results, which creates a positive reinforcement cycle that makes you want to keep using them. And because they're so quick, they don't disrupt your day. You can do 50 jumps in less than 2 minutes. You can splash water on your face in 30 seconds. You can chew gum while you work. These aren't burdensome additions to your routine. They're tiny interventions with massive impact. The effort-to-reward ratio is unlike anything else in personal development, which is why if you actually implement these, if you actually use them consistently for even just 2 weeks, you'll never go back. Because once you've experienced what it's like to have this level of control over your own nervous system, the idea of going back to feeling like a helpless passenger in your own body becomes unthinkable. You now know the truth that most people will never learn. You know the secrets that bypass years of therapy and thousands of dollars in supplements. You now have the secret instruction manual for 7 of your body's most powerful controls. Rub your hands aggressively to interrupt an anxiety spiral by flooding your brain with sensory input. Hold something intensely cold to activate the vagus nerve and physically shut down the stress response. Brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand to snap out of mental fog by forcing prefrontal cortex activation. Jump 50 times to generate instant, clean energy through cardiovascular and lymphatic activation. Chew gum for 2 minutes to kill cravings through impulse substitution and neurological deception. Blink rapidly for 1 minute to fatigue your visual system and trigger the sleep cascade. Splash cold water on your face to activate the diving reflex and achieve instant focus and alertness. These aren't theories, these aren't motivational concepts. These are biological mechanisms that work the same way every time for everyone because they're hardwired into your nervous system. They're as reliable as gravity. The difference between feeling powerless and feeling completely in control is simply a matter of knowing which button to press. You now know where the buttons are. You now know how to press them. You now know when to press them. Go and use these every single day. Experiment with them. Find which ones work best for you in which situations. Build them into your routine. Teach them to your friends. Share them with your family. These are tools that everyone should know because everyone has a nervous system and everyone deserves to know how to control it. Your body is not your enemy. It's not a mystery. It's not broken. It's a sophisticated machine that's been waiting for you to learn how to operate it properly. Now you know how.